Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Writing Through the Unknown. Gotta love live. So I'm gonna take a moment to collect myself before the reading begins. So I'm going to play the intro now.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a journey into the unknown. The energy that surrounds us presents Riding Through the Unknown with your host, Michael Kopf.
Okay, welcome back, and we're I'm more composed now. I can't speak for Angie, but I needed that little calm down moment. I'll be honest and transparent about that.
I'm fine. I think we were both a little rushed today, so maybe.
That could be. And for a little bit of housekeeping before we get started with tonight's special event is posted in the comments and on screen is a web address that I created for the show since Facebook has taken me down. I want everyone to know that these shows are still going and you can reach me at this website to ask questions about the shows, or if you want to be a guest, or if you're interested in the shows. All links are there. So, with that being said, we are airing on Rumble now. So, that is a super cool new network we're on. Now that we got all that boring housekeeping out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to Angie.
All right, so we talked about doing a reading and doing an SSP reading. So generally, I may get a little background from someone or no background. So I have notes on my computer here if I'm looking off to the side. But I did also ask you to send me questions, and I had a question about one of your questions. I think you said something about being a hybrid. So, are you aware that you're a hybrid? Yeah, I think you had a question about that.
I feel like I am because I feel like I'm like a star seed. So I feel like I have another side of me, and so I just use the word hybrid because it's just something that I feel like is there for me, is because I don't think along the lines like or react to situations I perceive as like humans do, and I'll catch myself a lot of times saying, I can't believe you humans are acting this way around this. And it's like, wait, why did I take myself out of the equation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done that as well. I've used the word like, well, the humans. And it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, I am a human right now, but I think a lot of us here are hybrids, like you say, that call yourself starseeds. But I do see you as having your parents' DNA. I see something that's similar to what I've said to a couple of clients is that your mother had the embryo inside her womb from with the DNA of her and your father, but I also see you being taken up on a ship and some DNA being mixed in there. So it might be a little different than what you consider as a hybrid since you've been on other planets, you've done other things, you know. So, um,
Well, that's what this reading is all about, is to figure out all of this and make sense of it.
okay. My computer just went off, so that's great. It's like when you're doing something live and technology goes out. So I'll go off what I remember though from my notes that I made. Um, I did see you in an Alpha Squad doing a rescue, so I do see you as being part of SSP, and I think that you told me that some people saw you in it, but you didn't have memories. But I do see you as being part of a rescue squad, and I saw you interacting with JFK, and I feel like a lot of us feel like JFK was. I hate to say things that gets you know the algorithms triggered, you know, but you're on Rumble, which I guess they're more open to stuff. But I think a lot of people, a lot of us feel like JFK was maybe removed from the planet for a reason. President JFK,
Right.
because he was going to bring some things out in the public. I'm trying to say things a certain way to not trigger certain things. Um, but I do see you working with him. I see like several groups working with him. So you've had time travel. I've seen several groups working with him to assist with trying to open up the truth of what was going on. And I feel like there was more than just him that was taken off the planet suddenly, that was trying to bring truth in the world. And I feel like, you know, come to think of it, there's something coming to me about just the time period of the 60s, kind of the hippie era 60s. I feel like there was a big rebellion, and it's not that I feel like it, like I'm seeing the vision of it, of that big rebellion of the group who didn't want to go to Vietnam, you know, burning the draft cards, all that. I think there was an awakening going on during that time period that was shut down. So, from what I'm seeing, is that in the history of the planet, of what we know, that we've heard in our lifetimes and in our parents' lifetimes, so we know we can put some truth to it. Like it's not put in a book and we're like, is this really happening? Did this really happen? I feel like there's been times where an awakening tried to come forth and it was shut down. So I feel like you've traveled back in time. You're part of an Alpha Squad that was trying to open up and bring truth out to the public about these programs. And JFK was taken off the planet, and some other people who were trying to make changes throughout time. And I think part of the program that you were in was shut down because of that. I also see you as having some clones out there, and I see you as working in the SSP or working as a super soldier, not really wanting to do it. I see that you've have been abducted at night when you're sleeping, and to be in some programs. I want to know what your other questions were that you had in your email, because I know that the hybrid one was the one that I connected on to.
So one of the questions was, what programs was I a part of? If, that information could be available so I can focus my energy, there and learning about those and maybe unlocking memories. And another part was actually my mind's going blank as well. Let me see if I can pull up the email real quick.
Yeah, I want to hold up my computer. It went like completely black, and see my cursor's still there, and that's just really weird. I have not had any problems with this computer, and as soon as I get ready to talk about your stuff, it goes black on me. It's really strange.
Oh, I'm used to it with stuff. Okay, here we go. I love when they group them all together and here we go.
Okay.
So first question was, what programs was or am I a part of? 2 was, did I break my programming on my own or did I have help? Because someone had said that I had broke the programming, so if that's true, I'm curious how it happened. 3rd was, have I talked with anyone I've been in the programs with, like on Messenger or shows?
Okay. Let's start with that, because I'm getting a yes that you and I know each other from the programs. Who else have you talked to that you could potentially know? Because the thing is I think part of our waking up, coming to know this, is that we're coming together and we recognize each other from other lifetimes or other realities like the programs. So
Priscilla LaPierre, I think her last name is.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
We talk a lot, and Christy Campbell, we talk a lot.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting yes for both of them. I'm not getting that you were with Penny in the programs, because you had Penny on. Didn't you have Penny Bradley on?
Yes, I did.
I'm not getting her, but I am getting yes to the other 2 ladies, to Christy Campbell and to Priscilla.
And Arkeem Rob Wood, he was a guest, and somebody mentioned they saw me at Montauk, but I don't have memory of that, and so I'm curious if I was there.
I am getting a yes on Akeem as well, and I'm getting a yes on James Rink. I know you didn't ask about James Rink, but James Rink apparently spent a lot of years, out there. Yeah, I am getting that you were in Montauk. I am seeing you as it's like a underground facility, which a lot of us know. I'm seeing some time that you spent in cages. I don't want to say any of this stuff to disturb people. It's like we're here waking up to it so we can be free, and shut it all down. But I am seeing you as being free, like you're done with it. So that makes me think that it was like a 20 and back program, like Tony Rodrigue talks about, the 20 and back, that he's done it. So if you go during a time, like, I can't remember what period what age he said that he went, like he was 10 or something. And so then they took him for 20 years, and then they age regressed him back to a 10-year-old. So I think he mentioned, and somebody else mentioned, how once you're back, so he's age regressed back to a 10-year-old, but he felt like an adult. but then once you get to that point where 20 years here goes by, you start to feel more free. So um, I am getting that you're back, you're done with all of that. So, and I feel that energy of it. It feels like you're more free than some of the people who are still being taken and are still wrapped up in the programs. Um, let's see what else were your questions about. Let me see, let me look some more at do you want to know more about Montauk?
Please.
um, and that was something I did have on my list, is you being used for psychic abilities, um, which makes sense that you're connecting like with me because I have psychic abilities, and connecting with Priscilla and Christy because they have psychic abilities too. So it's like you're in your little group. Um, let's see. Montauk, what was it? You were doing some remote viewing for them, and let's see what else I'm looking at. I am seeing that you doing some astral travel. So what they would do is they would take people, do something possibly to enhance your abilities, and use you for your abilities. So let me see what else. I'm seeing you there with me and Christy. I'm seeing you there with me, Christy, and Arkeem during the time that we were there together. Of course, you could have been there at a different point as well. Let me see if there's anything else. I'm not getting anything else about Montauk. I'm also seeing you as training like as a soldier and training as a cyborg. So the cyborg having some of like the AI on, let's see, but that was on a clone body. So I do see them taking you, like abducting you, putting you in a chamber, saving this physical body, and then creating some clones with part of your consciousness. And let me see with the cyborg, with that. I'm just looking at where you went. I did see before we got on, I did see you in Antarctica, and I've been in Antarctica. So that is one place that I've seen you with me there. And I know Christy was there, so I do see her there with you. Let me start a little more at the beginning with the training like super soldier. Yes, they would take you, train you, put you like in clone bodies. Some people are taken and kept in their physical bodies, and I feel like that's how some people come back with marks on their body. Like I've had marks on my body. James Rink has talked about marks on his body. Priscilla's talked about bruises, on her body. But I see you going into a clone body, fighting, training. I see you training on the moon. Let's see. Did you go to Mars? I'm getting that you did go to Mars and did some fighting there. And again, I'm seeing Elon Musk on Mars. So I've seen him on the moon, on Mars before with other people. And the way I've seen him before, I'm seeing him the same way now, where he's just off on his little area of Mars, just wanting to be left alone while there's whatever other chaos going on, like in these programs. So I do see you doing some fighting on Mars, and I'm seeing some insectoid looking things on Mars. Now I know that I've seen myself fighting some spider beings, and I believe that Tony Rodriguez might have mentioned himself fighting some spider beings, but I'm seeing some like insectoids there. And let's see, I see you fighting them, and I see them really not liking your energy. So maybe it is part of the DNA, part of your hybrid DNA that they're bothered by. Um, seems like you're having an easy time fighting them, controlling them, shutting them down. There's something you're doing with your mind as well, is what I'm getting. So, let's see if there's anything else. There's just so many programs and so many experiences that we can look at. Do you have any questions?
Well, one question I have was that's been on my mind lately is I've been seeing like the black goo, and we all know it's AI and nanotech, but I've seen me like leading people fighting against it. Is that because I've fought it before in the AI wars and the Orion wars, or is it because of my abilities I'm able to, manipulate it, or why am I all of a sudden dreaming that and seeing that?
Okay, I'm getting both. I'm getting AI wars and I'm getting Orion wars as well. And something interesting that's came to me lately that I've found with some people is, and I haven't heard this from anybody else. Like when I was putting together my list of possibilities, I added like AI planet and I added some AI information. And then what was interesting about that is that that was a couple months ago, and then a couple of weeks ago, now my computer just came back on after going black for a while. A couple of weeks ago, I had someone come to me for a hypnosis session, and she was getting all kinds of AI stuff and and then some things about us reincarnating again, being stuck in a reincarnation cycle. She was getting stuff that I had channeled myself, and some of it I hadn't shared, and I was like, "Wow, that's crazy." So I am seeing AI wars, and I am seeing Orion as well. And AI is something I had marked for you as well. So, and there's something I'm seeing where it's like your abilities with some of these people, like the super soldier secret space programs. Sometimes people go off and they're soldiers just using their weapons and using their cyborg AI abilities. But there's something you're using against these, like when I was talking about you on Mars fighting these insectoid looking beings, there's something you're doing with your mind. And it's, it's almost like I'm seeing you, you shutting down their consciousness or something with your mind. So, and it makes me think of like this ability I'm seeing with you. It makes me think of how we know that the pyramids cannot have been like lifted with anything we have here. So some people think, well, maybe something with their mind was lifting it. Like I'm seeing you moving things with your mind, doing something with your mind, and um, interfering with the consciousness of some of these other beings, like controlling them, shutting them down, turning them away from you, getting them to retreat. I'm seeing some powers like that. Um,
It's
so,
interesting you say that because one of my favorite stories, and my parents would always laugh about this and say it's true, is when we would go to church service. I would be wide awake, listening to everything, and then when the priest, preacher, or whoever was delivering the sermon got up to give the sermon, I'd go like I was asleep. It would instantly put me to sleep, and then the second he was done, I'd wake right back up and be like, "What just happened?"
mm, that's pretty interesting. You're right on cue there.
So I always thought it was my guides keeping me from learning the dogma, and
Mm-hmm.
now with what you're saying, I'm wondering if my guides were helping me to understand my gift and learn how to utilize it as a kid.
Yeah, I think so. It's good that they were blocking you from, you know, I feel like there's maybe some positive and some right things in religion, but then it's used as control, and there's some big wrong things in it, you know. So
Right.
yeah, so that's pretty interesting that they were knocking you out for so you would miss all of the stuff that's not correct. Um, yeah, I just keep you moving something. I keep seeing you moving something like moving a big block, doing some things that some of the others are standing around like, whoa, you know. Um, Even starting as a kid, like in Montauk, I'm seeing you doing that. Um, I'm also seeing you, and I don't know if this is some other place, I'm seeing you with a cloak, um, being able to change to being invisible, or being able to change to move from being in a physical body into like not being in a physical body. So, like, you're disappearing, you're traveling, and then you're reappearing again. And I have seen that with myself, but I didn't really know. I didn't look at it like, where is that? You know, like, where did that happen at? So that's pretty interesting because it's like you're able to escape. You're able to do something with your molecules, I guess you would call it. So you're in a physical body, you're doing whatever you're wanting to do, whatever your task is, whatever your life is, and then you're able to I can just see your molecules like dissipating and just moving out, like you just weren't even there. Like people are looking around, like, where is he? And then you're coming, reappearing somewhere else. So it makes me think a little bit how we would watch a Star Trek where they're like, okay, beam me up. You know, they just go get in this place, but you don't need that. Um, at first, I saw you with like a cloak and you're just moving the cloak around you and just you're gone, but it's like you're gone, the cloak's gone, everything's gone. So,
Well,
um,
it's interesting you say that because the cloak I've always been told is like was a gift from Metatron, and it allows me to go into the shadow realms and the shadows of the astral plane,
mhm.
and I can move freely. But then when I take the cloak off, everybody sees me, and then I have to close the cloak again to get out. And the other piece is when I was working, or I say working, but I was experiencing the Trinity table. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, where it's supposed to help you get an out of body experience. The gentleman that built it, I was on the table and he would always laugh when I would do a trip on the table because he would say, I could see you up to this point and then I lost you. You just disappeared on me.
So was that somebody who was a healer or something, or he was working with you on that?
He was, as far as I could understand it, was working with ETs to bring technology to help
Mm-hmm.
mankind like awaken to there's more here than meets the eye. But I mean, I met him through my parents, so I didn't seek him out and he didn't seek me out. We just happened to meet, or at least that's how it appeared.
Wow. And then also you had heard something about a cloak. Someone had told you about the cloak thing, or you saw a vision of something like that as well.
Well, I seen like I could always see myself going in the shadows, being like I could walk freely, like nobody could see me. And then somebody said, "Yeah, because you studied with Metatron, Archangel Metatron, who can, and he wears this cloak that hides his light so he can go into the darkness, and then when he removes the cloak, he's has his light shine." And so I in my mind, interpret it as, oh, so I have a Metatron cloak when I go into the Shadow Realms, and that makes sense why I can do what I'm doing. That's just something my mind put together, thinking, okay, this will make sense of this.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's kind of confirming a couple things, it sounds like,
I mean, because it was interesting that you would pick up on both those parts, and I mean, I've never said that on anything live ever, like that's recording. So there's no way you could know that.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had talked about that kind of stuff, but the thing is, when I've seen you, you're interviewing somebody else, so you aren't really talking. I haven't really heard you talk about yourself, So anyway, but yeah, it just seems magical. I'm just seeing kind of a magical thing. But the thing is that even if we think of magic, we should have some abilities like this. It's as if our abilities are shut down. We should have some freedom to, hide, moving in and out of body, or be psychic, or just be able to heal our physical bodies. We should have some abilities like what we've heard about. So,
Right. And another thing that's interesting is I would tell my parents a lot of times, going, it's so hard being human. The hardest thing is like I'll step forward and I pause, and everyone's like, "What? Why do you stop?" But my mind is like, "This is how I would move on the astral, and I'd be gone somewhere else. But why am I still here?" It's like I feel stuck.
yeah, yeah, I can understand that. I mean, when I just walk around on Earth, I think, gosh, I feel so heavy, like my body feels heavy. And I've had so many dreams where I'm flying, like my own physical body. I can I can levitate right above the ground and float, and then I can fly. And it's just like, I feel very limited here. So,
I agree, and like I like to tell people when I'm on the astral plane, I do the Superman Neo thing. And I added the Neo thing where it's like, I'll see myself flying around, but I will slam the ground if I'm feeling like somebody's in trouble and I'm coming to help. And I feel like, yeah, by slamming the ground like Neo does when he's about to take off, I do it opposite. And I feel like that kind of sets a tone with all the beans and everything around, going, let's step back and let's maybe talk this through. This probably is not going to go the way we think it's going to go.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how we're limited here, we've just, our abilities have been put in prison. And then like 95% of our minds and memories have been shut down. So let's see. My computer's back up, so let me look at my notes here. I could go a little bit more into like the super soldier, because I do see you as an assassin, and I was feeling blocked because I was looking at some of this right before we got on, and then it came up as like CIA agency. So sometimes when I see CIA agency, or when I see certain presidents, I start to get kind of blocked, and I have to kind of clear myself a little bit. So um, that's why I was blocked, because it was seeing you as CIA. So, and I have seen you getting mind wiped as well, which they do with a lot of us. They'll take us and, use us for whatever, and then mind wipe us. And also create those altars. I do see some altars being created, that had been created as well. Um, so they cause, just for anybody watching, they'll cause that trauma. And it might do pleasure, pain, or just cause a bunch of trauma, and they're separating off our consciousness. I think it was Max Spears, who's no longer with us on Earth, who I heard really explain the altars really well, being broken off. Um, let's see. And some torture, which a lot of us have been through the torture. And okay, so I've seen you working with Hitler. I kind of feel like the cyborg and the super soldier and the fighting stuff is kind of interesting to me. Um, I heard someone, I think her name is Alana, talking about how sometimes these programs that we've been trained in, some things are gonna like bleed over into this lifetime. Like for myself, I like to go target practice with guns, and she talked about that. She said that she'd done archery or something else, and I thought, gosh, I've done target practicing with guns, I've done knife throwing, I've done archery, I've done martial arts, like a lot of this stuff that I know are coming bleeding over from the programs. So I kind of get exciting talking about the fighting and that kind of stuff that I'm interested in. Of course, we don't want to think about, oh gosh, did we kill somebody? But if we did, we were out of our mind. We were programmed. But so I do see you as being like trained to be a soldier and trained to be an assassin. And what's interesting about Antarctica, and I did a whole show with James Rink on Antarctica. I had channeled, before I talked to him, I channeled probably 8 or 10 hours about Antarctica, just that I have put away in my own vault. But the interesting thing about that is I see you training on Hitler's side. So I was there too. And my dad, who's passed away though now, I saw him there as well. And so what I saw with Hitler is him, it's like he was playing a game with World War II and creating these different timelines with it, where it was just reliving over and over different timelines or different realities with World War II, which is very strange, I know. But I saw him World War II. Let me see if yeah, I do see you there. Okay. I do see you there. And what he would do is he would create these cyborgs and have these soldiers go in and fight. But he had them where what they really looked like was cloaked, so people couldn't see that they were cyborgs. They just looked like regular men, I say men because women weren't fighting in the war, not trying to be like sexist. But so we were put in there as men fighting, but we actually had some of this AI on us that they couldn't see what we truly look like. So what do you think about that? I see some time traveling in Antarctica, and I see various presidents and different leaders time traveling and going to that place as well. So
it's interesting because Hitler is an object of history that it's like I have twofold of is, yes, he did do atrocities, but then I was taught like with the metaphysics of, he came to do a lesson on mankind and experience something, and he was the only one who could do that. And so I was like, well, I kind of respect that because that's a hard thing to do, but I still am like, you didn't have to kill so many people and start a war to end all wars, so to speak, on the planet. But yeah, it's kind of like a mixed bag of emotions around him of, yeah, and maybe that's why, is because of being there with him.
yeah, and we didn't want to be there. Like we were taken and placed in that situation. So yeah, it feels really dark. it looks really dark, but yeah, I agree with you. It's like we're down here on this earth, and in some of these realities, having to have this dark and light and fighting against the dark, and um, it gets pretty crazy. It gets pretty deep. And one thing that was coming to me as you're talking is that people don't really talk about um, people in the U.S. who I'm sure have been in charge and maybe haven't done some, maybe have done some things that were not exactly positive as well, you know?
Right.
So,
And, I gotta admit, a thought that just popped in my head was with the bomb in the bunker. That was the generals who were trying to take out Hitler. Did we cause him to survive? Did we go there and like block him from the debris and the spatter? Because they say it was like really, they couldn't explain how he survived the bomb blast.
um, yeah, I can look at that because I see like a shield coming up. It's almost like a force field, you know, on a spaceship, like coming up. Um, as a protection. So normally, what we would think back in that time period of like the early 40s, we would think, well, all you would have as protection is like a bomb shelter, I guess, you know. But of course, there's technology that's always been shielded from us that we haven't known about, and I see him as having worked with extraterrestrials, and I do see a group going in. I see you going in. I don't think I see myself going in saving him. No, I don't. No, I didn't go in saving him, but I do see you going in. A group going in to help to protect him, and I see like a force field going up. And of course, that force field is, like I was saying, it was much more advanced than what supposedly they had back then. But they did have that technology.
Right.
Um, so I do see it as being true, like some people think that he lived, and I do see, just like what a lot of people have said happened, I do see a lot of the scientists being, you know, saved, taken out of there, and some of them coming to the U.S. and some of them going to other countries as well. I just see like the way I the way I see some things is I'll just see like a kind of a vision or a symbol. I just see like a spreading out. So they aren't just all coming here. They were spreading out to other places. So, but I definitely see him living through that. Um, I see him going and um, trying to live a quiet life for a while, but I'm seeing a, you know, all this gets crazy because I laugh because it just starts to get so insane, um, so impossible sounding. But I do see a spaceship coming down and getting him when he's a little bit older, and getting him and taking him, putting him into a med bed, and putting him into transferring his entire consciousness into a clone body so that he can continue living. And then I see him going to Antarctica. So if we go from the 1940s forward, so he goes, you know, you and a group come in, save him. There's that force field around him. He's living a quiet life, trying to kind of hide. Spaceship comes down, med bed, takes his entire consciousness, puts him in a clone body so he can continue to live. And then he goes to Antarctica, travels through time, starts to recreate various versions of World War II again, going back in time. So that's kind of the timeline I see of him, is to
Oh,
try to
and
go through.
that could actually answer one of the questions that plagues historians is, we who was it that committed suicide in the bunker? If there is photographic evidence of him in Argentina, could it be his clone that we found in the bunker so that people would say, yes, he died.
Yeah, of course.
He's in Argentina.
Yeah, of course it could have been a clone, because what I'm seeing, and I haven't talked about any of this before about Hitler. I just talked about a bunch of stuff about Antarctica in general to James Rink, and then all that other stuff I channeled and put aside. So I haven't talked about any of this Hitler stuff. Um, so what I'm seeing is that before, like, if we just look at Hitler here on Earth in the 40s, when he was in charge, World War II, all that. Like at that time, in this reality as we know it, he didn't know anything about ETs, but they were watching him. So for them to go in, put a clone in a bunker, looks like he was dead, of course, what I'm seeing is the ETs were helping him at that point. I think that what I'm seeing is that he was starting to know about the ETs around that time period. And I was like, whoa, and they were introducing him to this technology. So, and I see one of the leaders in that ET group saying, you're like our chosen one to, we're going to move forward and we're going to help you go on and do some other things. Like your life here as a leader and is not over. You're not going to die here. You're not going to be stuck and overrun. We're going to help you get out of here. So that's what I see with him. So I see the initial shock of like, whoa, really? And like there's these beings coming down from space, just that initial shock, because of course we know about the possibility of extraterrestrials, but back then it was just like, no, of course not for him. And then I'm seeing him walking through like a spaceship that's just very vast. There's these long hallways. I'm seeing some machinery and some technology, and I'm seeing some beings that are larger than him. I don't know why a lot of times they're larger, or they're little grays, or they're large reptilians. I don't know why. But I am seeing the main force going to him, talking to him, helping him as being reptilians. Now, I'm not trying to criticize reptilians and say, oh, they're all bad. I'm just saying that that's what I'm seeing going to him, and that particular group I'm seeing is as a negative group going to help him. So
Right. And we've come to learn now that, every race has splinter groups that operate just like we do here. So, yeah, there's no way to say all are. But I'm wondering, too, now that, we're talking about Antarctica and being the German side, I've always had an affinity with dragons. And I never considered dragons like reptilian. And I'm starting to hear a lot of people that are saying, yes, they were or are. And so is that where my affinity comes from, working with them there?
I'm getting a no on that. And sometimes when I check things, I'll check with a pendulum. So I'm like confirming what I'm getting. Because when I just get a yes or a no or just a number, I'll confirm with a pendulum. But I'm also seeing visions around it. And I'm not seeing anything negative, because as soon as you started talking about dragons, I saw a dragon coming in, and it was black, and it's like kind of spiraling in, and it was coming in saying, and now I'm getting this vibration in my head. It's saying no, we're protective. We're here to bring in like a magical force. And I'm seeing and feeling them as being part of this magical side of you. And something else, something you said is causing a clarity with me, which is kind of nice, because I've always kind of liked snakes and lizards and everything. And I hate to think, oh, all reptiles are bad. Does that mean all reptiles are bad? Like, are they kind of, I don't know. It's kind of strange. Like so many people are afraid of snakes, and I like snakes. I like those all those little things. Um, so, but back to the dragon. No, I definitely see that there's a big, strong, powerful force, and it feels like a very strong consciousness within the dragon and magical. And what I'm hearing from that one that's coming in is that it's just like what you're saying, not all reptilians are bad, not all humans are bad, it's like look at the group that you're working with. So, and then some of them can change as well, and that's something that I think maybe James Ring talked about it, that sometimes they have their groups that break away that say, okay, we're going to help humankind,
Right.
But I'm seeing that dragon as positive, and I've heard mixed feelings where some people say, oh, dragons are bad, and some say dragons are good. Some of the shamans will say they're like the totem animal or something, so um, but yeah, I'm seeing a particular dragon like around you that's coming in. He's saying that, yeah, he's around you. He's been with you in certain realities as bringing in that strength and that magical force, and just like a high level consciousness is what I'm hearing. So.
Okay. So I'm wondering now with, learning, being a part of the programs and trying to figure out what comes from what. Like you're saying, magical. I've always had an affinity, like magic is real. I mean, I'm 45 and I still believe in Spirit of Christmas, Santa Claus, all of that. It's like, you just can't, I just can't break that. It's like, no, it's like magic is real. It's not like the magic we think of where it's like, yeah, I can make a card appear out of thin air. That's not the magic that I was taught or felt like I knew. And it's like I had an affinity with the Arthurian Knights and Merlin. And so is this part of my hybrid side or is this from a splinter life?
Um, and I think it's something important for people to realize if they get information like they've been in the programs, that that's not all you've done. There's a reason they want you in the programs, and they want people in the programs because we are powerful. They're finding that we have healing abilities, or we have psychic abilities, or we have power to manipulate objects and energy. You know. So I think some of what you're talking about is coming through with other lifetimes or parallel lifetimes or other realities. And essentially, that comes all down to you within your soul essence, where it's all a part of you. And I think to realize it, like we're here on earth talking about how limited we are, but we're waking up to it and realizing all these different parts of us, that they're not out there and they're not something lost, they're not dead. It's something that we can open up that knowledge and work to open up those abilities. So if that answers your question. So
It does, and I appreciate that because yeah, it's hard when you grow up and you're like, I have this, this, and this, and then you hear people saying, "Oh, because I was in the programs, I can do this, this, or this," and thinking, "Oh, so is that program, not me?" And you can't help but start to think that, and yeah, that's like a trap, and that's what I'm trying to help figure out. Is I don't want to start doubting myself for everything that I could do thinking, oh, it's now because of learning I was in programs. It's like, no, I still have that curiosity. And I'm wondering, too, if when I was talking with Priscilla, I think it was Priscilla or Charity, that I was like, when I hear of the splinter lives where they're creating us aspects that are living lives and doing what they're doing while we're here doing our thing, I'm wondering if because I broke the program that I go, what happens to the people? Like, if we get married in that splinter life, what happens to our family if we have a family? Because once we're done, they bring us back, reinsert, and that ends. So does those people in that timeline just die and disappear, or what happens to them? And she said, and they were like, never thought about that. And I was like, is that because I broke the programming that I start to think about other people?
Well, I think you're compassionate, so you're thinking about them, but it could be, in a way, it could be a program within itself that's could be even something dark within that, trying to tell you, oh no, don't shut this down because that's going to harm other people. But it may be to your benefit to shut it down so that you're more free and you have more of your consciousness and more of your power back here. So in the energy clearing that I do, there's the belief that we can be off in a lot of different realities, but if we're off in too many places, we do have to shut them down because we get to where it's harder to function here. It's harder to be grounded and be functioning and be powerful and live our life here. So, and it sounds kind of weird because it is like, well, am I killing off those people? And I'm killing off myself. If I'm killing off myself, am I leaving behind, children or a spouse or something, that needs me? But it's kind of like, it sounds selfish to say it. It's like, well, if I'm suffering here, what do I do? Do I just continue to suffer when I can just pull back some of my energy and my power? Like, what do you do with that? So.
Well, especially if it was done without, like you're saying, they take and use without asking.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yeah. And that's the part that gets me is like, if, say, they took me, created an assassin, I lived that life, have a family, assassinate the target, they bring me back and say, okay, everything's done. It's like, I feel like, wait a minute, what about the family?
Mm-hmm.
And, what about those people? They're innocent bystanders to you taking me into the program. And am I responsible for them? And what happens to them because you're using me without my permission? Or who's responsible?
Right. Yeah, and I think part of it is just like the first step is for us to wake up to the idea that we're in these programs, and then we've got to figure out how to get out of the programs, and then maybe there's some forgiveness to do within ourselves. Like, okay, if I don't make the right choice here, I'm sorry, but I need to get myself back on the track of being a functioning human, because a lot of us here who have been in these programs are like depressed. Some get suicidal, feel kind of lost, like, well, who am I? What am I really? Just been pulled all over the place with the consciousness. So I think there's got to be a thing of either doing hypnosis or energy clearing or meditation or counseling or something to just feel like you're gathering your own mind, getting your mind into a good, powerful state, and finding whatever happiness you can have here, trying to not worry about it. Because it's as if we're playing God, like we're playing the creator, like, well, what if I say I want to shut down all this and be out of this and close down all these clones, but am I killing a part of myself? Who am I leaving behind? It's a lot to take on, to worry about.
Right. And one thing that just popped in my head that I was thinking about as you were saying this is the notion of past lives.
Mm-hmm.
How do I differentiate what a past life versus an aspect life is and be like, because I get past lives we can learn from and heal from.
Mm-hmm.
But an aspect life, I feel like, wait, this wasn't my choosing. Am I supposed to learn from this? Is that why I'm seeing this? Or just let it go? And so it's like, how do we then start to differentiate, or is there even a differential?
Yeah, that was something that I looked at, and if when I was taught that the SRT energy clearing is like we pull up all the lives in a linear fashion, and I know people say time doesn't exist, but we're pulling them up in a linear fashion so we can call them past lives and go through and clear things out, but clear things out at the root that are affecting us here. But when I looked in my own hypnosis at these lifetimes or realities or clones or all that stuff in the secret space program, SSP, Montauk, all those programs where we're just abducted and taken. I saw those. That was a question I had, is like, what's the difference in past lifetimes and these realities? I had that question. And I saw a vision of this lifetime here being really hooked deeply into those programs, SSP, Montauk, and everything, just deeply hooked in together, whereas past lifetimes weren't as connected to this lifetime. Like they can affect you, but they're more distance. So it's like, I don't know if that makes sense. I saw a vision of that. Like it's like a hitch on a car where you're hooked into the trailer, like these programs, Montauk, SSP, and all that. We're just really hooked into this life. And so I was getting the feedback, information back, is that like that's why these programs can affect us so much more even than past lifetimes. So
No, that's very helpful, and thank you for that because that brings a little bit of clarity to it. And I'm kind of also like curious because being in the Orion Wars and the AI Wars and knowing that I have connection to the stars, I can't help but feel like like I've always had an affinity to the Palladian story and the story of the Pleiades and other star races like the I call them the felines, and I'm starting to figure out that they're from Lyra. And so I'm wondering, what star nations are within me. Are those the ones, or are there more?
I would have to go make a list, and I know that there's main ones that people talk about, like the ones that you mentioned. But I really liked watching a show. It was years ago. I watched Barbara Lamb, and she had her pictures that some of her clients had drawn. Do you know who Barbara Lamb is?
I think I've heard the name in passing, but I've never met her.
She's a hypnotist. She started doing regressions back in like 71 or 72 was the first time a hybrid came to her. And one of her shows that she was on years ago, she used to pull up these pictures and that clients had drawn, and there were like groups of ETs I'd never heard of. And she even talked about it recently. I was talking to her recently, just a few months ago, on the Typical Skeptic podcast. She came on, and I was on there with Rob and with her. Um, so there's so many that people don't really talk about. Like I never hear them talk about that I would want to add to a list when I would go down to tell people what part they're in. But I can tell you, like the ones you've listed, if you have DNA from them. And a vision that I'm getting about you is the same vision that I'd gotten about me, is that it's like a Frankenstein, but in a good way. Like we have these different parts, put together, where they try to, when you came down here, like you're here, like you wanted to have some DNA. So even though your mother, I see her as being abducted, taken up to the ship, having certain DNA put into the embryo, but even coming down here as a star seed, like I'm seeing a lot of the star seeds as wanting to have a certain mixture of DNA, instead of saying, okay, well, I want to have, mainly Palladian or all Palladian DNA. I'm seeing some like you that wanted to have a certain mixture. But I can check on some of the main ones if you want. I mean, I do see the Lyrian, like the lion type, right? I'm seeing some Pallades, but like a smaller percentage, and I'm seeing some of the Octurian as well. Is there any others that stand out to you that you'd want me to check? I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot of the Lyrian. So what else?
I'm not sure. Arcturians, I'm interested that came up. That kind of piqued my ear. And one thing too that is like my parents would say was a little bit different for me was, how kids when they're first learning things like playing outside would be, they would have fun and just, do whatever. When I was playing outside, I would have a sword on my side. I'd make it out of something. And I was like, chivalry and nobility was like, and the noble code was like my foundation. And it's like, I knew that before I knew anything else. And I can't help like thinking that that's from my star side. And, is that really true? Because I feel like a lot of times when something's happening, I'll feel it and I'll go, I need to help my people.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing that come from. I mean, it's coming from all those ET parts, but um, I mean, I'm hearing it come through the Octurian side. So of that wanting to go help the people, um, putting the people or the beings, whatever they call themselves, like putting them above you, putting them above your own safety. So
Yeah. And one of the other things too was, we talk, we're starting to hear about there's ships all around the earth and space. And ever since I was a teenager, I'd be like, yeah, guys, up, I'd feel like I could talk to the ship and be like, hey, send me a shuttle down here, watch me over here. I want this squad to make sure I'm okay. And it's like, I was like, and I'm like, yeah, I have a ship or fleet in space. And it's like, to me, it seemed like everybody does. Well, that's nothing special. But then started talking with some people and they're like, you have what? And so is that because of my connection with the ETs, or is that because of the royal side? Or is there no ships?
yeah, I'm getting is the connection to the ETs. And I have seen that. I've heard some other people talk about, their ships being up there. I've seen myself, go up on a ship, and they said that we had, some of us had come down here wanting to help, on the planet. So I am seeing it as part of the ET connection. You should come out here to Sedona, and you'll see ships all up here where I'm at. So, Andromeda was another one. I had to look it up because I couldn't. I was seeing like the AN something, but I couldn't remember what it was. So I had to look it up. So I am seeing part Andromeda too for you. But yeah, I do feel like you have some ships up there with part of your, what would feel like more of a family or more of a home type of situation. So.
Okay. Well, I just noticed that we're in an hour and 10 minutes, so I don't know if you're needing to go eat or do anything.
Yeah, we might want to wrap it up. My psychic side gets a little tired after, like I could chat a little more, but when I'm looking at stuff, it's like it gets a little bit draining.
I understand that, and for me, it's like I get jazzed, and I'm like, if I'm gonna sleep at all, it's like, yeah, probably needing to end it soon. But
it was a big thing opening up the Hitler thing, because like I said, I hadn't talked about that at all, and I'm just like seeing all this stuff around him. So that was just a lot of visions, a lot of stuff coming in. So I hope some people find that interesting, because I know a lot of people are into history and into World War II and everything. So
right, and I found it interesting and everything, and I'm noticing one question that came in the chat group as we're saying that we're needing to wrap it up, but
yeah, sure.
it's kind of got me curious because I never thought about it. And Flixlove is saying, do you have a connection to rock beans too? Asking if I do.
I'm seeing, yeah, I'm getting a yes. I don't know what they are, but I'm getting a yes around that. So I don't know if they want to explain a little more of what they are. I did see myself I was in a hypnosis years ago. A lady hypnotized me, and I saw myself as being like a rock, but I had some consciousness, so I don't know if that was a rock being. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is, Michael?
I don't, and that's why I was like curious to see, because it like piqued my interest, because I was like, I know rocks have an essence just like trees and grass and dirt has an essence, but I've never thought about them as being a being.
Right.
Oh, Flixlove says they're second dimensional.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Maybe if Fixed Love can send us like a link or some more information on it, be interesting. I had a client here in Sedona, because I used to live here and moved to Texas. I'm just moved back here, but when I lived here before, I had a client come in. She wanted a surrogate session. So she wanted a session where, like, I had hypnotized her. She got some information, but she didn't feel like she got enough. She wanted more. And I said, yeah, I'll do a session for you for free, since she didn't feel like she got enough. And she came in person again. And then the lady who hypnotized me for the surrogate, she was on Zoom. So the client, so there was something coming in that was like right here around Arizona, and the beans were like down in the rocks. And I thought, this is weird. So I'm connected with the client's high self consciousness. So I have no idea what's going to come out, and I'm like, there's something like moving through the rocks, some beans. And the client isn't really supposed to talk to me. It's supposed to be the lady hypnotizing me, who is in Maine, this lady, Hannah. So Hannah's asking me the questions. The client just suddenly butts in and says, are they ant beans? And I said, yes, they're ant beans. I had no idea what ant beans, but there they were. They're walking through something within the rocks, which I guess they had tunnels. And they told me, yes, we're ant beans. So this person talking about rock beans, it reminded me of that. It's like, Like there's all kinds of beings out there. Just like I was saying that the hypnotist Barbara Lamb said, you know, it's not just the main ones like the Lyrians, Octurians, all that. There's a lot of different ET types. There's the ant beings. I guess there's the rock beings too. You know, that we don't talk about much. So
Right.
that aren't the popular groups. They're not the popular kids on the block. You know.
Yeah, they need to get better PR.
Yeah.
But so I'm gonna wrap this up because yeah, we're both getting into that altered space, and I can feel like yeah, we need to wrap it up. And so thank you to everyone in the chat room. Thank you, Angie, for doing this, and I appreciate it. And thank you for coming back on the show.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. It was fun.
And for everyone that was watching, I did put my website link up, and I did put Angie's websites up. So if this has got you thinking, you know, are you a part of this, or do you have questions that you want asked, you can reach her at her websites and reach her directly. So thank you again, and I appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you again.
Thanks.
Okay. Now, there it is. So, good night, everyone.